So it would be good if we could support that. And that will then, a report on how that is going will be brought to our next meeting again on the 28th of February. Nothing else, I don't think, that's on there that isn't coming up elsewhere. Has anybody got anything? Sorry? Yes, I thank you. Yes, so could we have a vote on the accuracy of the minutes, please? Does anyone want to put that forward? Yeah. Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Fellows. Thank you. Thanks very much.
I do apologise, but my wife keeps.
It's been non-contentious so far, Councillor Fellows. Before we move on, I should welcome both Councillor Cleaver, thank you for coming to the meeting, and also Councillor Whittington, who's your first time here on the committee, so thanks for coming this morning. Sorry. Oh, yes, so can we vote? Yes, we haven't voted on the minutes, actually, so can we vote on the accuracy of the minute? Yep. Thank you. I think we've been through updates, so if we could go to the head of paid service for an update, was that happening now? Sorry, Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. In terms of announcements or updates from myself or Cabinet members or Head of Paid Service, I'm aware, obviously, Karen is not here at present. In terms of an update from me, very fresh off the news, which is to announce that we have finally been, and this is literally in the last 5 minutes, being given approval for our bid into the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. So more information will be forthcoming, but it looks as if we've secured that investment, which is fantastic news for the district.
That's great news. That's how much money is involved there?
3.8 million over a three-year period. Well, 3 months. Yeah. Well, a shorter period now. The government's taken longer to make this decision, but yeah, the original was for 3 years. But yes, we've managed to secure that income, and that's a mixture of both revenue and capital funding. And obviously, more information will come out to all members in the next couple of days.
That's great news. Thanks very much indeed for bringing that this morning. Good. Sorry,
forgive me, Chairman. I missed a trick there. I just wanted to say something about the updates, but we've moved on. Will you indulge me? And I just wanted to mention the app, of which I am a very keen supporter, and really just to say that the figures that were quoted in the email of the 11th of November are a little bit disappointing, frankly. 180 businesses and 800 consumers. 800 consumers isn't much out of the whole population of SK. So I hope that we will stick with it and get it really improved and up and running and get more use out of it for it to do its job to promote the district and promote the businesses in the district.
Thanks for that, Councillor Cleaver. Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I completely agree with Councillor Cleaver, though, in terms of Hello SK. It is a vital tool that we can use for our businesses in terms of supporting our independent businesses as well. I know it does feel like we're in constant purder mode at this council at present, and hopefully after the 15th of December, we will actually be able to go back to promoting some of the achievements that we want to set out as an administration. Hello SK, it has got a feature in this edition of SK Today as well to promote that to our communities. And obviously, once we come out of purdah again, we can start to promote it again to both businesses and consumers as well on a much wider scale. But I know the team are definitely behind it, and I'd encourage every business to sign up to it and every resident to also download the app as well.
Yes, there's certainly been quite a bit on Instagram this weekend at the relevant markets with it, and I think probably the figures are better than have improved from that. John?
Yes, they have, and I think what I'll do as part of the update for the next meeting is we now have access to the full dashboard, which provides us all the detail you would need by town, by sector, by everything. So I think I've agreed I'll bring that to the next meeting, and we can actually look at where perhaps we need to put more of the emphasis on the promotion as well. So yeah, that'll be fine. Thank you, Richard.
I think from the chair, I think it is, something like that which is completely new to people. You're not just sort of selling the brand and you're selling the concept of doing it, which is always a little bit difficult, but also for people who've been used to traditional modes of marketing and relating to each other. So it's a bit of a leap in education as well, isn't it, John? I think.
It is, and I think probably the greatest educational piece is the fact that it genuinely doesn't cost them anything, and they're really struggling with the belief that it's not going to cost them anything. And putting a value on something as good as this that doesn't involve paying for something is actually quite a difficult message to get across, but that's one of the marketing tools we're looking at, how we promote it.
Thank you very much. So now I think Debbie Roberts is here to present the key term performance indicators.
The leader is going to present this item, Madam Chairman.
Do you want me to? I'll introduce this one. Well, thank you, Madam Chairman. Obviously, before you today, members, you'll see the KPIs for quarter 2 of 2021-22, which takes us to the period of the end of September 2022. This committee is obviously responsible for 4 key performance indicators from the corporate plan. 2 of these indicators are rated green and 2 are amber. In terms of delivery of growth of our economy, obviously we work with partners and attractions to promote the visitor economy and increase visitor spend in the district, including the adoption of a tourism strategic framework is green, with 55 visitor attractions being engaged with against the target of 40. The visitor spend was 168,630 against a target of 113,344. And the adoption of a tourism framework has moved from amber to green as work is progressing and will be presented to a future meeting of this committee. In terms of healthy and strong communities, around improving and investing in the local arts and cultural venues across the district, the measures are both amber regarding capital works, but it is worth noting that the roof works are due to be considered at Cabinet in relation to the Stamford Arts Centre. Healthy and strong communities, again, although the measure for this KPI are amber as per the commentary, it is worth noting that the opening hours and programming for each arts venue has been revised and are kept under constant review so we can get as many people through those doors as possible. There has been a successful transition of telephone bookings to the Council's customer services team, with the majority of bookings being made online, as you would expect, as we are in a much more digital world now. The programmes at the centres are increasing in line with COVID recovery. Early sales for the pantomime at the Guildhall Arts Centre are extremely good. I know I'm going in a couple of weeks' time as well. The Arts Centres, not to perform myself, but I'm accompanying the Grantham Disabled Children's Society, so it'll be a really good event. The Arts Centres are valuable community facilities and opportunities are being explored for alternative use. For example, the Guildhall Arts Centre is being used as a daycare centre present for adults with learning difficulties. And there are plans as well to involve them in a much wider offer of the Arts Centre, and that's working in partnership, obviously, with the County Council on that one as well. The opportunity to introduce a volunteer-led visitor centre is obviously being explored for the Stamford Arts Centre. Many of you will be aware that they did set up in one of the churches in Stamford. Now, I appreciate it is a bit cold in there during the winter months, but actually for me, we need to get more footfall into these buildings. We need to get more people into them. So if we have a volunteer group willing to promote Stamford and the wider district in terms of visitor economy, then fantastic. And obviously we've got some areas that we just need to confirm with them on that one, but I think that is good news. Obviously the aim of the strategy is to identify the Council's ongoing role in providing, along with our partners, a high-quality cultural offer which meets corporate objectives. Consultation has begun with key stakeholders from mid-November in terms of the strategy. And then finally, in terms of adopting a sports and physical activity strategy, as this is complete, the team work on embedding and delivering the action plan, hence these measures are all green as well. And obviously I'm sure we'll have quite a wide-ranging discussion and happy to answer any questions, as I'm sure officers and the Cabinet member are as well.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Thank you. Are there any questions on that? Councillor Cleaver?
Thank you. I should sort of declare an interest, I suppose, although it's not a financial one. I am one of the volunteers, visitor centre volunteers in Stamford, so I'm keeping, obviously have an interest in what's going to happen there. So a couple of questions, really. First of all, there appears to be some confusion about the visitor centre moving back into the arts centre. I'm hearing from some people that it's a done deal and it's definitely going ahead, and other people are saying it's still at the proposal stage. So I should welcome, I think we'd all welcome some clarity on that one. That would be very helpful. Also, in terms of the priority to improve and invest in the local arts and cultural venues across the district, and obviously I know that's at Amber, but it does seem to me that the decision to withdraw £69,000 of capital money from Stamford Arts Centre that was agreed at the last full council seems to rather contradict what we're saying about approved capital improvement works for the Arts Centre that are ongoing in the report. Could you clarify that, please?
Thank you, Councillor Cleaver. Would Karen?
I mean, I'll probably get told off by either Rosemary or Karen if I answer this wrong. I think where we are, so in terms of the Stamford Visitor Centre and in terms of the volunteers running that, I think I've always said I am incredibly supportive of it. I'd like to see that happen. As far as I'm aware, it's just the final details in terms of them being able to access the building, in terms of how they operate, in terms of insurance. I appreciate they've also requested a phone line as well. So there's a number of requests that obviously our officers are working through, and I'm happy to hand over to Karen on that one. But, you know, if we can support volunteers coming back into the Arts Centre, then fantastic. In terms of the capital money from the Stamford Arts Centre, you know, a lot of investment has gone into Stamford Arts Centre, and indeed another, you know, 400,000 is going to be spent on that roof, alongside the refurbishment that we've done in the ballroom, in terms of the refurbished toilets as well. But we also need to look at the holistic approach in terms of the whole council, in terms of our own capital programme, in terms of what is essential and what is nice to have. And I think at the present time we need to be very cautious in terms of our spending. So, you know, where money needs to be spent, it will be done. But if there are nice-to-have projects, then we need to evaluate those against the affordability and what that will return to the council ultimately. But Karen, I don't know if you want to go into any more detail on that.
Thank you, Councillor Cook. I'm not sure I've got too much to ask and respond to on that. I think it was a perfect answer. Thank you.
Councillor Cleaver, does that answer your question?
That's fine, thank you. Yeah.
Are there any other questions relating to the KPI? No? Mary? No? Yes, moving on to the refresh of the cultural strategy. And I think, is it Rosemary, Councillor Charlotte Bellew, who is going to discuss that?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This report follows on from the report presented to the committee on the 6th of September, where the Head of Economic Development shared the latest tourism data for the district as provided by the STEAM model. And STEAM stands for Scarborough Tourism Economic Activity Monitor and is recognised industry standard for reporting annual visitor economy data. Sorry, that was a bit of a mouthful. The information provided in the STEAM report demonstrates just how important the sector is to South Kesteven economy, with headline figures including 2,232 full-time equivalent employees working in the sector and 2.27 million people working in the district. This is in 2021. Also, as reported recently in Finance and Economic Development Overview and Scrutiny Committee, retail, accommodation and food services are all identified as key sectors within the South Kesteven economy and are acknowledged as such within the Developing South Kesteven District Council Economic Development Strategy. The intention is for the visitor economy strategy to be South Kesteven District Council's route map to supporting the sector over the coming years, and will benefit on the three priorities, let's put it that way, of creating compelling places to visit, building private sector marketing capacity and extending the benefit of tourism. Also identified in previous reports to this committee, there is a real opportunity to develop and grow the staycation market, particularly within the non-serviced accommodation sector, and this needs to be dovetailed with increased promotion of the visitor attraction and retail offerings right across the district. In order to collate the necessary detail and breadth of information required, and to provide an action plan that can support delivery of this key sector for the district, it is proposed to appoint specialists with the appropriate experience and technical skills that can help build capacity of officers to deliver the aims of overall strategy. The report also identifies a number of implications to the wider council, and as such it is proposed a cross-council working group to be established in order to prepare a suitably wide and inclusive scope of works for the appointed specialists. The recommendations are: 1. Agrees there is a need to develop a strategy to grow South Kestervan's visitor economy. 2. Endorses the commencement of a procurement exercise to appoint a suitably qualified consultant to work with officers and members of the committee to develop the council's visitor economy strategy, and to consider the appropriateness of drawing together a cross-council working group to support the development of the strategy. I hope members of the committee welcome the focus and resource being placed upon this hugely significant sector to the district, and are happy to endorse the recommendations put forward in the paper. So thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any questions? Councillor Fellows and then Councillor Robin.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Stevens. Sorry about I couldn't get it up on my computer, so I'm trying to refresh my mind, but I am sharing Richard's. My major worry and concern almost harks back to what we were saying about Stamford Arts Centre and the way that needs to be moved forward, and also from my experiences of working in Bourne. To put it bluntly, why do I need a specialist to tell me what I know? And what I would be looking for is the best value for money, but build onto that the best value from the people we already have. I absolutely believe that we have councillors and community groups that could give every single bit of information we want regarding how we can build our cultural visitor strategy in South Kesteven. I can be accepting of the point you might need specialist people to draw that together, but the actual knowledge is there if we look for it. So what I would be looking for is a strategy that encompasses meaningful workshops with people from our communities and councillors who know our areas and know what would make those areas absolutely prime locations for building out projects and getting visitors in. To put it bluntly, I don't want to spend any amount of money on an outsider to tell me what I already know. Now, again, I apologise for me backwards and forwards, and it might be possible that that Rosemary will be able to tell me which one of those can actually service what I'm suggesting. But again, why should we pay money to find out what we probably all know? I actually feel that if we went round the room now, every single one of us could give you a good way and a good reason to move forward with this strategy. Why should I pay money for someone to do that for me? But if you could answer some of that, Rosemary, if you can make some sense of it, I'd be grateful.
Just before you do, I think Councillor Robbins had a similar question, didn't you?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to ask, with regards to the expected cost will be in the region of £10,000. I just wondered, is the council committed to spending the money to realise this report, and have you got the money to do that?
Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Obviously, so in terms of where we are, and I think I actually agree with actually some of the comments that Paul Fellows has made, and also yourself, Vice Chairman. So for me, it is really clear that anything we do as a council in terms of our visitor economy, because it is so important to us as a district, we have got to get the engagement right across the entire district. And, you know, I know sort of one of the recommendations is about doing that cross-council working group. You know, ideally, what I would like to see is actually members of this council almost doing, and I think I've mentioned this before, going out and doing that sort of that road shop and going to each of the towns across the district, and probably doing a rural one as well, which can probably get hosted in the mid of the district, because, you know, we've got Grimsthorpe Castle, we've got some incredible visitor attractions across our area, and actually going out into the communities, engaging with the populations, inviting those local stakeholders to actually say what they would like to see in terms of a visitor economy strategy, as well as working with Destination Lincolnshire. I had a very productive meeting with Charlotte Goy, who's the new Chief Executive there. I'd strongly recommend she's engaged in this, and perhaps even invite her along to a committee to talk about what they're doing across the whole of the county, but also what they're doing to promote us as South Kesteven. I think part of it is, so yes, we would have the money to do this. I think there is an issue in terms of capacity in the team, in terms of being able to do this. So it's really about supporting the process. But the actual engagement at grassroots level needs to be led by us as local members and also our local communities in terms of that one. So really it's about, for me, I want to see, you know, best value for money as to what you get from that money that we'd allocate in terms of making a strategy that does work for the district. And it may include areas that we haven't thought of, and areas that, you know, and I don't know who this individual may be, but in terms of supporting it, they might have ideas from other areas that might be productive for us here. Because I think some of the challenge we have is it's about brand SK, and it's about breaking that down and what people actually see as part of that, in terms of when they come to Lincolnshire, what they see. And part of the work that Charlotte Goy is doing at Destination Lincolnshire is actually creating that brand Lincolnshire. You know, we often hear and see all the stuff about Yorkshire, but actually you don't see that about Lincolnshire. It's not got that brand recognition. So for me, I'd definitely advocate, you know, do some road shops, get out there, get out into the communities, invite local stakeholders along. But part of this is, you know, as much as our team can also support that, and our comms team, I think we also probably need some specialist skills in terms of drawing up that strategy and feeding in all that engagement work that we can also do.
Thank you. So as a suggestion then, would it be an opportunity to ask Charlotte Goy to come to our next meeting to talk about Brand Lincolnshire? That would be on the 28th of February, if that's okay. So that would be good, thank you. So in terms of what you both just said, in terms of workshops and talking to communities, we did do some of this. When we were in lockdown, we had some really good Zooms online with, and some really good conversations with people that were delivering, didn't we, John? And it seems a shame that we've kind of lost that almost with you know, coming out of lockdown, because we, you know, everyone got on the call, and we had lots of different, real cross section of different people, you know, from Belton House to, you know, some very small visitor attractions, and you know, I think that's a very, you know, good way of kind of fertilising and then, well, networking really because there's a lot of payoff between different attractions and different, you know, deliverers of accommodation and so on. So I think that's really, you know, that's kind of what we're driving at. But it's how do we organise that, Paul? How do we, you know, I think that's a really good idea, and I'm absolutely up for it. But we can't all just sort of go off and kind of do our own thing. You know, we need to be kind of following a programme of doing that. I absolutely agree we should do it, but we need a programme in order to properly empower people to do so. Did you want to come back on that, Councillor?
Yeah, I think it's really looking at the next couple of months in terms of the diary and setting dates in each of the towns, and then inviting all the stakeholders and really, you know, getting local members to engage with their, you know, local visitor attractions to get them to want to come along in terms of getting the value out of it. So, and obviously that's something that the council would assist with.
Councillor Fellows.
That's the way to do it. It really is to set dates work with officers. I'd be more than grateful personally to work with any officers to put forward a constructive plan. But if you, as Callum said, if you structure it so that there's an input from the local communities, and as long as those meetings have a positive outcome, in other words, people are invited along and they know they're going to be listened to, and they know their views are valuable, and then pull all that together. I mean, it's two things, isn't it? It's the creativity, and my fault is I'm probably far too creative and not organised, but making that creative thought, put it into an organised process. And I think what Councillor Cook was saying is absolutely the way to do it. It's not beyond us.
I'll be up for that, definitely, and I'm sure Councillor Robbins would too. So would that be not in the first instance, would be an officer-led initiative, in that they would set up the venues and the structure of because you'd want all the structure of each of the consultations to be the same, wouldn't you? You would want to go down the same route. Is that something that we can, from this meeting, delegate to the officers? Yeah, Councillor.
Yeah, I think it's a conversation to have with the officers, because it's all right. It's all right me coming up with airy-fairy ideas and then giving it to some poor soul to make work. That's ridiculous. I think it's a conversation with officers to see how we can best facilitate that. As a new year approaches, it is probably a wonderful time to do it, to engage with the communities, work out a basic strategy of doing that is deliverable, getting that information, and then finding the best way of disseminating it to make it plausible and happening. Particularly in the situation we're in at present. Let's face it, I'd love SKDC to give Bourne £500,000. It's not going to, because it can't. It's as simple as that.
Put your precepts up.
So it's so I think it's a conversation with officers to see what's possible, then an administrative structure that enables it to happen. But again, engage with as many people as we can to make it successful.
Councillor Charlotte Bellew.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Could I suggest that maybe you go forward with the working group to start with, then you'll get your ideas together and the officers will know what they're working on.
So you're suggesting that we have a visitor economy working group, as well as a cultural strategy working group? Because we're talking about the visitor we've been talking about the visitor economy here, haven't we? Yeah. Well, can I just ask Nicola, please, if you've got any feedback on what we've just been saying?
I think actually we're closer than it feels. I would like us to go to the market, secure someone independent that's going to be able to help and do exactly what you're asking them to do, arrange groups, meetings, so that we can get feedback. It needs to be separate to the cultural strategy, but alignment needs to be there. So that's what I think will work better. So we can do all of this consultation that you're suggesting, but we need somebody to hold the reins on that.
Councillor Cook and then Councillor Whittington. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And I think what I would say is actually a number, in terms of the visitor attractions around the district, there are already informal groups in terms of the private sector that already meet to talk about what they can do to encourage more people to our district. So actually I think the ideas are already probably there actually in terms of them coming forwards. And you know, I think what we've got to be really clear on in this strategy is it's not one of those documents where it's lovely, it's got lovely paragraphs and talks about how wonderful everything is. It needs some clear metrics as to what it will actually deliver and what, because we are limited in terms of what we can do, but what we can do we must put to the best of our ability by working with all of the other partners that we can in terms of making it the best place to, you know, and I know the strategy, you know, to live, work and visit.
Thank you. Councillor Whittington.
All I was going to ask is that we need a strategy for the strategy. I don't want to have us hiring a group or an individual and it running out of control. We need to know exactly what we're going to ask them to do. You can't just say, oh, go out there and fix our problems for us. We need to say, we're looking at increasing the visitor economy. We're looking at by aligning it with cultural services, getting everything together. We need to be very targeted in what we ask our people to, these people that we employ, to do. And therefore I think the idea of the sort of working party help us sort of which road are we going to take? You know, have we considered radio ads, etc., this kind of thing. We need to sort of sharpen our focus so that we give clear instructions. That's all.
Thank you. Councillor Court, do you want to come back? I know you've indicated, Councillor Cleaver.
No, so just expanding on what Councillor Whittington said, you know, that's the point of having that working group. So you sit down and you work out exactly what it is we're going to do, and then you go out and engage with the community. So it is, you know, because the last thing in the world we'd want is to arrange a meeting with the community and not really know what outcome we want from it. Yes, we want some free-flowing discussion, but also we want to make sure we're getting the best value out of their time as well, that they would be investing in this as well.
Yes.
Thank you. What I'm saying is we need a targeted approach to whomever we say, come and help us with this problem. We can't just go to somebody and say, oh, you're an expert in this field, sort it. We need to say to that person, this is what we want to do, can you recommend an approach? Because the more latitude we give them, the more money we're going to spend. That's all I'm saying.
Councillor Cook.
And obviously in the report in 2.8 it does state what the three strategic priorities are in terms of what this strategy will do. So it just needs to focus on what's in the report as well. Yeah. Yeah.
Councillor Cleaver.
Thank you. I'm concerned that we shouldn't fall into the trap of writing yet another strategy which sits in a silo on its own. Because there's clear interrelationships there that we can't ignore. So, for example, in terms of attracting people for staycations, to support that, we need a local plan to have a policy on change of use of buildings to allow buildings above, the rooms above shops, stores above on the high street to be converted, and that not to be in conflict with our change of use policy. And that's a policy that we need to develop maybe as part of renewal of the local plan that's going on at the moment. Similarly, our policy on car parking. You can't attract visitors in unless you've got enough affordable car parking. And again, I understand that we're supposed to be having a parking review coming up, organised for the County Council at some point. It's been on hold for about a year, I think. That is due to happen, but again, we need to build into that. Similarly, and I know it's a pet subject of mine, but actually improving rail services, obviously particularly for Stamford, having 2 trains an hour instead of 1 train an hour, could have quite a big impact on the accessibility of carbon neutral, or more carbon neutral transport in and out of the town for people to come and visit. And again, that's something that's always bubbling under on the agenda to try and get that done. But without the transport links, it's difficult for people to come, and we do want to encourage people not to necessarily come by car. And then, of course, there's the question of cooperation across councils, that we're not duplicating. You know, my heart sinks a little bit every time you do a Google search and you see there's multiple websites trying to do the same thing with county, district, a tourist board, whatever comes up when you look at it. And it does seem that we've got to avoid the duplication of effort and duplication of resources. I do support the idea of us having somebody in from outside to look at this, because I think there's a lot of people have opinions, including small business owners, including people in the hospitality sector, but actually have never had those ideas and possibly prejudices or their own feelings about the extent to which they are reliant upon the tourist economy actually validated by any proper external data, any proper research. And I'm a great believer in making policy decisions which are actually based on fact and proper research and things being done thoroughly. And therefore, if that is what someone from an independent person from outside can do for us, I think it would be very, very, very worthwhile. Because I think there is also an issue about raising consciousness levels of just how dependent our local economy is on the visitor economy. It really, really is important. And many people, including some councillors and including some business owners, really aren't aware of it, really aren't aware. There's a lot of invisible tourism in this district. We don't realise that people in the street that we're walking past are actually tourists. They don't have a big badge on saying, hello, I'm a tourist, be nice to me. But they are a vital part of our economy, and we don't understand enough about how that works and how we can improve it and extend it.
Thank you for that, Councillor Cleaver. Councillor Cook.
Well, thank you, Madam Chairman. Gosh, there's a lot to go on there. I have made some notes. So in terms of what Councillor Cleaver was saying in terms of the units above retail shops, obviously here in Grantham we've got the Future High Street funding, which is enabling that to happen. So the first 22 units have been converted. I think in other market towns, we need to also look at that. I know down in Stamford it is more private sector led, but like you, I'm sure you walk down the high streets at night in Stamford and you see all of the, it's empty. A lot of the units are empty, and it'd be lovely to see that footfall back into the high street by people living above some of those shops. You're right in terms of the parking review, in terms of how people access our areas. I know in Stamford at the minute we've got the traffic movement survey undertaken, so it'd be interesting to see actually what the flow of traffic is around the town as well. The rail services, I do agree with you. 2 an hour would be better, and the joys of living back in the centre of town again is I do use the railway station, and it is a pain sometimes in the fact that it is only once an hour. In terms of cooperation on councils, I think you raise a really good point there, and actually one of the examples I'll give is the work that we as South Kesteven also do with Melton, which also works with Nottinghamshire in terms of the Grantham Canal. And that's where we are working cross-party in terms of how we can potentially get more funding to make that a real destination to go on. When I was at that meeting with Charlotte Goy not that long ago, one of the areas I raised with her was, what is the engagement you are having with the county and the districts? Because, quite often you will see branding for various aspects of Lincolnshire, and they're all different. There's no cohesive brand, there's no cohesive strategy in terms of destination Lincolnshire and what that looks like. And, if all of us pool together some resource to actually create a real destination, then we get people more into the rest of the county, not just people coming to Stamford and then not perhaps travelling up the A1 to Grantham or further afield to, Woodall Spa or wherever else. So I am, I'm pleased you've raised that, because that is one of the areas that I'm concerned about in terms of how that branding is undertaken. And in terms of, hotel spaces, one of my concerns at the present time is, with hotels being used by the Home Office in this district, is it is pushing hotel prices up. It is limiting the supply of hotel accommodation we have for visitors, and that's one of the downsides of us supporting, asylum seekers and the Afghan refugees as well, which, obviously we have a moral obligation to do, but it does create added-on pressures where we have a lack of hotel space. And, over the last 10 years, I think it's a public fact, I'm sure, hopefully quote me on this, in Stamford we've actually seen a reduction in the number of hotel rooms over the last 10 years, and that is a concern, because we want people coming to our district in all aspects. And when Dean Harrison took over the Angel and Royal, I was delighted, because they've invested millions of pounds into that facility to get people to come into our town. So and I'm pleased you support obviously someone with the appropriate experience and technical skills to support this, because ultimately it just provides capacity to our team as well in delivering this.
Thank you, Councillor. Did you? I'm not sort of clear. I'd like to be clear about where the cross-council working group would come into this. Would we have a cross-council working group ahead of the appointment of a consultant, or would that happen? It's just the way it's worded in 210 here on page 33. It is anticipated the detailed scope of this commission will be determined by a cross-council working group. How would we anticipate that happening? Sorry, Nicola, can you, Councillor Charlotte Bellier.
Just we can easily set that up and deal with that. That's not a problem. We can get that sorted for you.
So we would anticipate, because I think we wanted to kind of get this moving as quickly as possible, actually. So when would we anticipate doing that?
If you leave it with us, we'll let you know as soon as we can. we'll let you know after this meeting when we can.
But sometime in January.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it will be a cross-council working group, so not just for this particular committee. Is that right? Yeah.
It could be what you wanted, Madam Chairman.
Right, but it says specifically in the recommendation here that it's a cross-council working group.
Well,
so
that's what this committee is,
do
cross-council.
do we feel that we should perhaps do that? We have actually missed out an item on the agenda, which was the refresh of the cultural strategy, which we'll come back to. Sorry, and that will incorporate a working group of this committee. Would you prefer, councillors, to have a cross-council working group to look at the visitor economy, or would you prefer for that to be, first of all, in this instance, in this particular committee, first of all? Have you any preference? Councillor Fellows.
My preference would be cross-council, with obviously people coming onto it who feel like they can contribute. I mean, as wide as possible, as long as it's workable within a discussion process. So I'd go wider than narrower, but hopefully colleagues would be able to make that choice that they could contribute. In certain circumstances, certain councillors would need to contribute, because as Councillor Cleaver said, it's a wider issue than that. So I'd certainly go cross-council than just this I mean, there's 3 of us here today. Sorry, 4 with Penny.
Sir Thomas, has a...
Jill, you're up there, mate. You snuck in, yeah. So even so, I think the more the better, as long as it does not become unwieldy. But one would hope that anyone who joins that workshop feels like they could contribute in a meaningful way.
Thank you. Is there any other? No. So the recommendation then is that we then formulate a cross-council working group to meet at some point in January ahead of us appointing a consultant to look at the strategy for the visitor economy in the region of £10,000 and to then deliver a strategy which we can then take up and work towards and be able to monitor in our key performance indicators. So it would give an officer a kind of working an aid memoir to work from. A modus operandi is what I meant. So can we have a vote on that? Well, I propose that from the chair. Does anybody second that? Can we vote on that?
So, are we voting on recommendation 1, 2, and 3 as you have effectively just reworded it? Just to be absolutely clear for...
Well, just...
Sorry.
I've just reworded it to take into account, I think, what people have said this morning. So, are you all happy with that?
Yeah,
agree. Okay.
Are we doing 1 and 2 as well, just for the purposes of
1 and 2, sorry? Oh, I see, yes. Yeah.
Sorry, just trying to make sure we're clear, that's all.
So basically, what we're approving, if we are, is that we agree that there is a need to develop a strategy to grow South Kesteven's visitor economy, and that we endorse the commencement of a procurement exercise to appoint a suitably qualified consultant to work with officers and members of the committee to develop the Council's visitor economy strategy. And we consider the appropriateness of drawing together a cross-council working group to support the development of the strategy. But we will do this ahead of the appointment of the consultant, which will be in early January, hopefully. And we're all voting for that. Are we all clear on that? And that's everyone's happy? Good. Okay, lovely. Smashing. Thanks very much indeed. So going back, we have, in fact, missed the number 8 on item of the agenda, which is the refresh of the cultural strategy. And there was going to be a verbal update on that from Karen.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm pleased to report that after the last meeting of this committee, we went out to procurement to find a suitably qualified consultant to help us develop a refreshed cultural strategy for the district. Because we wanted to go as widely as possible, we didn't confine ourselves to a framework. We actually did a wide advertisement of all interested parties. I'm pleased to say we got 30 expressions of interest, so it did generate a significant amount of interest. and those interests transpired into 10 tenders that were evaluated, both in terms of the price that was submitted, but also the quality of the responses and the experience of the consultants. Pleased to say we've appointed Red Quadrant as our preferred contractor. We did actually start work with them. I echo some of the things that members have said today. For me, it's really important that we get as wide a consultation as possible as part of that work, and obviously Red Quadrant will be helping us pull all that together. So we did have a workshop planned today. We did have workshops planned in each market town today. Unfortunately, we've had to delay those into the new year because we were in an extended period of purdah. And for me, it is really about promoting the opportunity for members, residents and local businesses to get involved. So I think that was the sensible thing to do. But we are in the process of reorganising those dates for January, and they'll be widely circulated. There'll also be a resident survey as well, and a specific survey for all members to contribute. So I'm looking forward to taking forward that piece of work. Thank you.
Thanks very much indeed, Karen. Are there any questions for Karen on that? No? So I think the working party that you're working on, again, will be in early January. I mean, whether we could put the two on at the same day, I don't know. We'd perhaps think about that, because obviously it involves a third party with the Red Quadrant being involved.
Yeah, so we've got regular update meetings with them, and we're trying to secure dates because we'd like to tie it into the specific consultation events in the market towns as well. So it is quite a complex piece of work, but we'll come and circulate dates as soon as we can.
So that will be for this particular committee, that will be a working party of this committee, which will take place again in early January, in tandem with other workshops that are taking place in the market towns. Okay, lovely. No questions on that at all. Okay, so we'll reserve all of those questions for the working party, hopefully, when we meet in January. Thank you. Moving on to the work programme, item 10. So we're having an update from Claire Saunders, I believe, on the Heritage Action Zone shopfront scheme, which I understand is going very well. And Claire will be putting a report together on that for our February meeting.
She will. She came 12 months ago with the report, and she'll be coming up with an update on that report to include everything that's happened in the house in the last 12 months. So, yeah.
That's great. Thank you very much, John. Yeah. So then the markets, which we were hoping for an update on today, but we are going to have a full report on markets from John in the February meeting.
I shall definitely be here in February, Councillor Stevens. I think that's for sure, yes.
Thanks very much.
Can I just...
Sorry,
in relation to the markets, I do recall that at the last meeting of this committee, there was some concern expressed about the level of subsidy that's required at Grantham Market. I believe it was reported as £84,000 a year as a subsidy. And I hope that the update that comes in February will make some reference to that and what's happening with that specifically, because it's not actually in the description that's in the paperwork here.
Councillor Cook.
So I think, yes, absolutely. And I think, if you're looking at markets, you need to look at it in a holistic way by looking at all of the aspects of it. And I know we've had conversations about markets before, and, we do have 4 market towns, and, we need to support, I know obviously we don't manage them in all of the towns, but we need to find ways in which we can support our market traders, because ultimately these are the people that may then grow their market stalls into retail units in our town centres and grow their business. And it's where a lot of people start their business. And, I think in terms of a strategy, it's about how we make the best value out of our markets in our market towns. And we all saw the way how they were used during COVID and the real benefit they provided to our local communities. So I know it's something that everybody will look forward to discussing and debating at that meeting.
Interestingly, I was asked yesterday for 5 things. Could I name 5 things that South Kesteven have done for our district in the last 4 years? And one of them there are many of them actually, but one of them was the fact that we kept our markets going during the lockdown period, and they really kind of flourished at that time, particularly, and that has continued, I think, to a certain extent, not as much as, but obviously during that time it became a real lifeline for people, and that was really down to our markets team, I think, who did a sterling job, and the fact that we encouraged that, where in other areas they actually closed them down. So I think that was a real positive, and I think the whole market thing is a whole interesting concept, and because I think as you talk about the high street, we talk about the high street, and I think people want more than just a shop now. You don't kind of immediately think, I need a bag of nails, I'll go to a shop and get one, in the same way that perhaps we did in Victorian times, or even dare I say it, when I was young myself. But nowadays people are looking at shopping as being a kind of experience. I must say, I went to Stamford on Saturday afternoon, and it was after all the there must have been stuff going on during the day, because I know it was a big day for Stamford, and it was just absolutely magical. The lights were on and the street was rammed with people shopping, and the lights were going down, and there was an opera singer singing in the high street, and it was really just fantastic, actually, a wonderful experience, and you can't get that online. So it's sort of looking at our high streets probably in a way that is perhaps more creative than perhaps we have done in the past. And I think markets definitely add something to the whole high street experience. They really do. Sorry, Councillor Cleaver.
Yes, indeed, I'd echo that, and I'm very conscious that our markets are, again, a vital part of the visitor economy that we're trying to promote. So, I'm very keen that we look at it in a lot of detail to see what we can do, how we can expand, how we can improve, because I know they're a big draw, actually, especially in the winter. It's the light and the smell and the colourfulness of the whole thing. It does bring people in. There's no question about that, and you're right to expand on that. But I have a concern. We are short of money, and the idea. And forgive me if I'm wrong. I saw elsewhere in the papers, in fact, the 11th of November email that was update mentioned 16 pitches at Grantham. But if you divide £84,000 by 16 pitches, that's £5,000 per pitch per year, which is a lot of money, and I don't think that is sustainable, and I think we need to look very carefully about how we improve the offer at the same time as not having to spend that amount of money on one market.
Councillor Trollope-Bellew.
Thank you very much. As you said, the markets were a lifeline to many people during the pandemic, and I think they'll also come into their own again with the cost of living crisis. But we also must remember that we need to support our markets, and if we are too negative, then traders will go elsewhere and we'll have no market left. So it is important as a council that we help support the traders and the residents of the various places to keep these markets going. So that's why, as a council, and part of my portfolio is that we are very keen to look at the markets as a whole and to see what we can do to help the market traders and help the markets become a viable visitor economy to the whole district. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I think as well, just coming back on those headline figures, I think it's, those figures kind of sound quite sort of, I wouldn't say juicy, but in a negative way almost. But I think when you look at what the underlying costs are, and perhaps at the bigger picture, they won't be quite as juicy as they look on the surface of it. So I'm sure that will come out in the report that John brings to us in February, because I know from previous meetings that we've had, discussions with Paul, that there are, Paul Stokes, who was obviously in charge of markets for a long time, that there are costs and so on related to markets that are different according to the different venues, and so it might look like one venue is very profitable and another isn't, but there might be costs involved, and so it's not always what it seems. Can I just say that?
That's fine. I mean, let's see the evidence, because this is a scrutiny committee, and seeing the evidence is good scrutiny.
Absolutely, but I'm just sort of saying that because I might be privy to some previous information that other councillors will know that perhaps you don't. But anyway, Councillor John, sorry.
Thank you. So in terms of that particular point, Councillor Cleaver, one of the issues that we identified is obviously the business rates, that the council has to pay business rates. And the council doesn't get a discount on its business rates for running the market. So when we look at the costs, you're absolutely right, there are costs beneath that headline figure that we're finding out. And I think if it's to give you any comfort in terms of the level of detail that we're looking at in ready to present this report in February, I currently have a colleague looking at the original charters of the market dating back to 1600, and she's looking at that now to see just what we can do to the maximum effect with our market. So in terms of detail, we're certainly digging as deep as we possibly can.
Thank you. That's very reassuring. Thank you.
When you put it that way, John, it's not many businesses that can date their longevity back to medieval times and before. so there's got to be something in it, isn't there? Moving on from the markets, which we look forward to, we've got a little bit of an update on the Arts Service transitional funding. Did you want to just put us in the picture where we are with that, Karen?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. There'll be a full report coming to the February meeting. Unfortunately, South Kesteven, as part of a collaborative bid, was unsuccessful for the next round of National Portfolio Organisation funding from the Arts Council. We did meet with them on Friday because the Arts Council have expressed a desire to continue to work with us, specifically in Lincolnshire. So we've got some ideas which we could take forward. They're also keen for us to apply for some transitional funding that will help us decide the future and whether any future project funding based bids are just for South Kesteven venues or whether we continue to work with other venues across the county. So we'll have a full report next time.
That's lovely. So we'll look forward to that in February as well. And then an update on the Inspirational Women of South Kesteven, which I think we've mentioned before. Obviously, that's been put into abeyance because of PERDA coming up on the 6th of February and a report in the 28th. And the plaque guide and information trails, again, that's down to you, Karen, for February. Is that no? No, John. Sorry, John. John.
Yes, I will definitely be here in February, as previously mentioned. So linked to what Councillor Cook was saying earlier in terms of the Shared Prosperity Fund, that was one of those things that we were looking at potentially for that, so we can now start to look in earnest about how we're going to deliver that, very much as part of building on the HAS. And people will know from the corporate plan one of the key lessons of the HAS and the Future High Street Fund is how we can roll that out across the wider district, and that's one of the things we'll be looking at across the district in terms of the Blue Plaque Guide.
That's great. Thank you very much indeed. Sport 6-month update.
It's a 6-monthly update, so if, with your agreement, Madam Chairman, I'll check when the last time we came.
Right.
I believe it was about June time, so if we've got a significant amount to report, then I'm happy to bring it, but if not, we could bring it to a future meeting.
That's great. Thanks very much indeed. So looking at the work plan going forward, we'll incorporate the cultural strategy onto that, and the visitor economy as well, that update on that for the February meeting. Great. Anything else that anybody wants to say they haven't said already? No. That then brings the meeting to a close, doesn't it? I think that's it. Unless there's any other business which has been brought forward, and there isn't. So thanks.